Hi, this is Pigsy, doing another little vid. I was watching something um, last night to do with the Bible, history, different tribes, um, Canaanites and Hittites and other things like that. So that goes much back, further back in time, and that possibly the origins all sort of had connections, and they believe that sort of horses have spread people around, and then they set up tribes in certain areas. It doesn't explain why there's all these different races, though. You don't move to another area of the country and suddenly you become a different race. However, it's very strange that the accents, like you could take a group of people from, say, the UK, young people, and they won't develop, they probably will still retain some English twang in there, but they would take on the accent locally. And why is there accents locally? It's always a bit unusual in that sense. Um, Possibly a form of imprinting with the language as well. When you hear things, you imprint what exactly you've heard, like recorded. So anyway, going back to language, basically the origins in religion. Language is spread into different cultures and religions, and basically that's a kind of inkling. It's like a DNA you put in a part of another culture into a religion, or say another culture altogether. But it's kind of amalgamated, merged with the other one, because I think that's historically when empires and wars are won, the victor may paint the picture of history they wish that people to believe. Make out them more heroic and all sorts of things. There was never any losses, and they tore them apart and all sorts of mad stuff. But they also assimilate the culture. They assimilate some of the population, so they create their own new race. And I think it's kind of what's been happening throughout the centuries, really. So yeah. Anyway, looking at the alphabet they said when I was watching this documentary, possibly could be older than the Hebrew, because the Hebrew's gone through certain changes. There was some form of the captivity of Jews at some point in time, but there's like Judah and other things. There's also a split between these two gods, Baal and Yahweh. So that's why the Jewish believe in Baal and Yahweh, and Allah means light. So in essence, it's like they're saying that they lean towards the higher God, some higher form. But then again, gods don't have petty rules, to be honest. Gods do pretty much what they like at that kind of higher level. I mean, yeah, there's a plan behind it, but I don't think they would need to worry about 10 commandments and things like that. So it's more of a human conditioning, which is religion really plays, is that kind of integrating a template between the spiritual and the social and the human, basically. So to just create this thing, and the times reflect it, whether it's like an era of war or peace. So looking at this alphabet, I think it tells a story of different information that's kind of hidden in their code. In the past, you'd have things like hieroglyphics, where you'd have symbology. So you could draw like a tree, and then that would be tree. You've got the whole word there, and then you could put other things in that, like a man in there, and there'd be the man in the tree. So, but to write that kind of thing takes a long time, because you're telling the story like an artist. I think initially that there was possibly different races of man, because I don't think we're all sort of from this system. And we've just kind of emerged culture of different cultures and different humans from different parts of the galaxy. But yeah, basically there would be possibly more spiritual. Maybe it's more encoded. You could look at different symbols and sort of meditate on it, and you'd have the answer or the story to it, or something, a hidden truth. So it's like locked in knowledge, but you decode it via sort of telepathy, or there may be some sort of spiritual thing where you could just like meditate on particular symbols and bring it in. I mean, there was stuff about bringing in channeling via the stars, I'd imagine, sort of the spirits of the gods into giant statues and stuff in Egypt. That's why they've got these huge statues. So I keep going away from this alphabet. So I was looking at this alphabet, and with this kind of triangle, you get a kind of basically an alchemy symbol of like got two elements combined there. It could be heaven and earth. You've also got these sort of symbols turn up. You've got a circle and tail on it, which is more about the seed, a seeding. So we've got a seeding here. There's a connection here as well. So there's a seeding, and there's something else. This looks like a different type of seed. So that's just something to bear in mind. And I noticed a relation. Sometimes things work in three, so we'll look at that as well. But there's also some of the letters in the alphabet. Like let's take for example I and J. They're so similar, but why are they so similar? And why are they put together? Or M and N. We come back to that. And even V and W, they're not so dissimilar from each other. So yeah, when you look at this symbology of here, you can see that the B could be easily, well, sometimes you have it like 13, like 1 or 3 there. Or what I've got here is I've got a staff with a single snake or strand of DNA. So a single strand of DNA. So that's something taken from it, from a particular species. And then you've got this other connection here. You've got a connection to the C. The C actually looks like a moon. So there's a moon shape here. The D and a capital D is like the dark side of the moon. See where it's the different symbols where it's moved across. So there's a reference to the dark side of the moon. So maybe they're. So this will probably blow your mind. Is that possibly the alchemy that went on with the species and genetic engineering is actually on a base or on the dark side of the moon? So that's that. And then there's a purpose here. Sometimes the Z is seen sometimes as an embryo. And as well, and the F is a funny sort of swirly shape, much similar to the swastikas and things like that. And that kind of, it's got a line through it, and it's a swirl. These actual symbols, not some form of racism. It was just they just nicked all the cult symbols and added them in like skull and bones. Nobody complains about that, having a pirate symbol on them. And now how many countless people died for that? So what you have here is the Milky Way galaxy, and then you've got this other letter here, like the E. Like I mentioned, that E can be like a seeding type symbol or an embryo. So you've got something. Possibly it was some type of. Well, basically you've grown the species already, and so it could be cloning. It could be a form of cloning. There you've got the Milky Way, and then you've got the actual species, which would be in its form of an embryo. So there's an embryo there. It's a bit. Might seem a bit far out, but something happened. So whether there was some genetic engineering going on, they're trying to make a new species for whatever reason. So they're probably, or it's the seeding of star seeds, basically seeding from the Milky Way. So they're bringing life from other places and putting it in there, and then they've created this thing here where they've got. It looks like it's another kind of with the G. It's a kind of, and they always remember the Masons love the G. So you've got this swirly C, or you've got this swirly G even, and even in the other G, it's just things to think about, like spiralling downwards. So, and then it was almost the H is like a chalice, so it's like it emptied, something emptied out. So maybe it was whatever experiment here was a failure. And then this other part was, or it's been added to. So you've got, so like I mentioned here about starseed. The product, well, this is almost the embryo, an embryo. So they've already like frozen embryos they brought over, and then they've added this embryo. It's been added to these possibly other different symbols. Now this symbol could be I, as in an eye, as a physical eye, like a candle symbol of the way the eye is. But the other one is the J. The J's got like a tail to it, so you may have potentially two different species here. This thing may be what they go on about the reptilian part of us. Because it's got the tail, and then there's the other part. But there's also, it could be like a fish or something aquatic, because things like the salt in our body and so on is quite unique to humans, and our eyes and stuff are quite unique to us. I mean, there's some similar animals like horses and so on, but and there's the fact that we can sweat and all these other things, and the fact we sweat salty water from our skin is a bit unusual to other species. So it's definitely not just something that just dropped out of a tree, because I think that's just ridiculous. It's just basically it's basically using artistic aesthetics to say that one thing is related to the other because it looks the same. But obviously you can't do that really, because it's just, what it is the what works in the universe is repeated. Repeated in design. It's the creative design. It's what we call the magic of nature, in essence, of symbology, and things like mathematics, or certain mathematics turn up in different plants, but they all seem to have this encoded mathematics. It's not because they're necessarily all related, it's that they are connected by the same source that created them. That's possibly the best way to look at it, and that could be something external coming into this planet that's been working trying to improve on nature itself, or it's something else that's behind nature, like a different type of god in that essence. So we've got these different symbols, and when they're capitalised, they're a bit unusual. It doesn't really tell me too much about them. I mean, this could be like a road here, and it divides at the top and it divides at the bottom. So it could be it's basically doesn't look like a man anymore. But here, it kind of looks like a river. The way it kind of, we extended the J out, so it's like a bit of land almost. Or it's something coming to the surface. I think definitely there's definitely some aquatic. So looking at this sort of the J symbol, it could be a man, it could be some other species as added together. I'm not entirely sure where the L and the K come into it, but a lowercase k. I mean, I drew it. It looked like a bird in a stick. So it might be an area of peace. You had the thing from the Great Flood, so that kind of story they come across. Once a bird flew off, it would basically come back with a stick, or it's on a bit of land. And I think it was a crow, to be honest. Crow with a K, Cronus. So it may be something completely different here. So I will have to look at that. But yeah, looking further down these symbols here, like with the M and the N, you can see M as a kind of larger wave, or the DNA strand, and the N is kind of a shortened version of it, so it looks like it's been spliced or cut. So they've been reduced in some way. But with the O underneath as well, the O represents sort of an egg-shaped thing, so the DNA being altered for the egg. This may be to make our species so we can actually breed, because in essence we come back to here